रांगा तम से लिपटा तम तो झलकट हम बेलड़ी। रांगा तम से लिपटा तम जो सुकुन हम मरी जावा। मारा कई हो ऐसी म्हारी प्रीत निभावजो। ऐसी म्हारी प्रीत निभावजो। हो निर्धन का हो राम ऐसी म्हारी प्रीत निभावजो। हो दुर्बल का हो राम ऐसी सागर में झूलो मती। तम तो बादल हम मोरिया। रांगा तमारा ही माय तम तो बरसन हम मोरिया। रांगा तमारा हो माय तम तो बरसो ने हम बोलिया। मारा कई हो हवा ऐसी म्हारी प्रीत निभावजो। ऐसी म्हारी प्रीत निभावजो। हो निर्धन का हो राम ऐसी म्हारी प्रीत निभावजो। हो दुर्बल का हो राम भव सागर में भूलो मती। तम तो समंदर हम माछली। रांगा तमारा हो माय तम तो समंदर हम माछली। रांगा तमारा हो माय तम जो सुखो तो हम मरी जावा। मारा कई हो हवा इसी म्हारी प्रीत निभावजो। ऐसी म्हारी प्रीत निभावजो। हो निर्धन का हो राम ऐसी म्हारी प्रीत निभावजो। हो दुर्बल का हो राम भव सागर में भूलो मती। कहे हो कबीर धर्म दास से सुन लो ध्यान धराए। कहे हो कबीर धर्म दास से गावे बजावे सुने सारे। कहे हो कबीर धर्म दास से हंसा सतलोक जाए। ऐसी म्हारी प्रीत निभावजो। ऐसी म्हारी प्रीत निभावजो। हो निर्धन का हो राम ऐसी म्हारी प्रीत निभावजो। हो दुर्बल का हो राम भव सागर में भूलो मती। हो निर्धन का हो राम
I was just enjoying watching this beautiful scenery outside. Some of the goats, they stepped inside the property also because they don't have this concept of mine versus others. It is a beautiful sight to see. The word freedom, we've loved this word since the very beginning. We all want freedom. And we imagine freedom to be a certain way. We think that once there is one particular state of the mind, then we will be free. When I was young, for me, the meaning of freedom was to do what I want to do. But slowly I found out that freedom doesn't mean anything when you want to be able to just do whatever you think you want. The true freedom, Master says, is in the choicelessness. Because we may think that we want something, but that wanting may be just an idea in the mind. I can give you one example. Someone known to me always wanted to live a comfortable life, easy life. So he would often say that, let me get into a government job, because I've heard that government job is easy, 9 to 6, then you're back home. So he got into a government job. And after a couple of years, he told me that it has been one of the most painful experiences of his life. He got into banking. So there was no timing as such. And he would relate it to past. As in, he would see our parents doing 9 to 5, but those times were different. Even my father was in a government job, and strictly it was 9 to 5. But then we didn't have smartphones, we didn't have all this technology. But now it's all connected. So that boundary between work and home life gets blurred, no matter what you do. On top of that, he had some marital issues. So every attempt to seek comfort was actually destroying him. And every time he was clear in every choice that this is what he wanted. He was very clear about it. No, this is what I want. I want my life to be a certain way. I want my life partner to be a certain way. So the point of relief came when there was acceptance that there's no way out of this. In that moment, the choice collapsed. See, in non-duality, there is a huge paradox. A Sufi mystic says that what you're trying to find cannot be found by seeking. But at the same time, nothing ever gets found without seeking. Bayazid. The self that we think we want we make it into an object of our imagination. And then becomes the chase of seeking. But every seeker knows that deep, deep down, he was always a seeker. It may not have been this form, it may not have been spirituality or desire for enlightenment or any of such thing, but there was always some questioning. What is life? What is the purpose? What is the meaning? What is the right way? How can I protect myself from wrong? So in this division between right and wrong, the seeker gets tossed from one end to the other. But when there is this understanding that choicelessness does not imply time, not the physical time, but as Jiddu Krishnamurti said, psychological time. It is to be understood that that is an illusion. There is no psychological time. What that means is, in our lives, there is a measure that we live with. Right now, I am this. And whatever this is, I'm not happy with it. I want to change. I want to modify. I want to transform. This is not enough. So I come up with clever arguments. I come up with philosophies. Only if I read the highest scripture, the Ashtavakra Gita, or if I just memorize all the Upanishads, then I will know. So, the seeker gets into this chase of seeking something, but they're not very clear as to what is it that they want. They have been told that you're going to get something, and that promise is so alluring that it's just going to solve all problems in your life. So when this question comes up, what does the seeker really want? What is the seeker really seeking? And at one point of time, I also faced this question when I was in the presence of a master. And he asked me, Jagjot, what do you want? And I kept telling me that I'm depressed, I'm sad, life is not going according to my way, my plan. But he kept repeating the same thing. But you tell me what you want. And with some hesitance, I said, peace. So he said, but the peace that you want depends on the circumstances. So what can you do about it? That is where it struck me that I truly do not know what I want. And I truly do not know what I'm seeking. I may give it many names. I may say that I'm just seeking peace of mind. But truly, that movement, I have not been able to understand what that movement is. So ultimately, this realization dawned that that desire to attain or achieve that is a product of thought. So anything that is a product of thought will be divisive by nature, because thought is dualistic. It comes with the opposite, as we discussed yesterday. So ultimately, it was discovered that true freedom is in the acceptance of what is, and what is does not have choices. What is simply is, whatever is happening right now, the unaltered movement of life, the unpredictable movement of life. Embracing of that unpredictability is going to bring peace, not peace of mind, but just peace. Ishan, can you do one thing, please? Can you just get my bag from my room? It's open. I forgot my notebook in that. It's on my bed only. There is no choice there. There is no concept there, private property. All property is my property. Thank you, yeah. Thank you so much. Just 1 second, I'll just give you the bag. Yes, yeah. Thank you. So one concept which brings me closer to this aspect of choicelessness is the concept of free will. And it is intricately tied up to the concept of non-doership. I'm reading a quote. It says, if the moon, in the act of completing its eternal way around the earth, were gifted with self-consciousness, it would feel thoroughly convinced that it was traveling its way of its own accord. So would a being endowed with higher insight and more perfect intelligence, watching man and his doings, smile about man's illusion that he was acting according to his own free will. Albert Einstein. Sure. If the moon, in the act of completing its eternal way around the earth, were gifted with self-consciousness, it would feel thoroughly convinced that it was traveling its way of its own accord. Okay? So would a being endowed with higher insight and more perfect intelligence, watching man and his doings, smile about man's illusion that he was acting according to his own free will. And in continuation to that quote, there is another quote by German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, which also was quoted by Einstein only, where he says, "Man can do what he will, but he cannot will what he wills." So this question of free will cannot be answered in one word, saying, do we have free will? Yes or no. It cannot be answered like that. It is again a paradox, part of a paradox. Yes, we have free will, but at the same time we don't have free will. Let me explain. Yesterday we spoke about the concept of non-doership, where we see that I am not the doer of my actions. Actions are happening and their corresponding consequences are also happening, but there is no individual doer. So if there is no doer, then the natural question arises, then who is this me? So if this me is shaken up, faded, then whose free will are we talking about? Ramesh would say, everything happens as per the will of God. Now again, the word will of God was his concept. Sometimes he would use the word will of God, sometimes he would say cosmic law. Everything happens according to cosmic law. So this concept, if put forward that do we have free will or not, his answer would be, we have the free will to make a choice. But the moment we have made a choice, that is where the free will ends. After that, what is the outcome? What are the consequences? What are the fruits, good, bad, whatever, is not in our control. So you, as the created object, as the entity in manifestation, move around with complete idea that you have free will and act according to that, knowing that the outcome is predetermined. So you see, when the outcome is predetermined, yes, we may have the free will, but what is the quality of that free will? We may make choices based on our current understanding. That is the best what we can do. There is no way we can ever know whether we have made the right choice or the wrong choice, because that is very subjective matter. For some people, some things will be right, for others, they will be wrong. So there is no teaching on earth that can teach you what is right and what is wrong in the moment. The only thing is, the only reason that I believe in this concept is because it frees me from the load of shame and guilt. Because if I am not the doer, then why should I carry any shame or any guilt for what I call as my actions? Now, what is the problem with this concept? a fear may arise, and the fear may be then everybody can just act as they want to. Or if everything is determined, why should I even do anything? Why should I even bother? Why can't I just sit and watch Netflix all day or play video games all day? We can certainly do that. We can just do nothing. But are you capable of doing nothing? Truly, are you capable of doing nothing? You see, you have this engine, pseudo-engine called mind. If the physical activity subsides, the mental activity will increase. So it will start chattering non-stop. So you will have to move physically also and mentally also. Not just move, but act in a way so that the body gets tired and the mind gets tired, because otherwise you won't get sleep. And without sleep, there won't be any health. So whose free will are we talking about? We like to believe that things in the nature, in universe are random. But what if, just considering the possibility, what if that randomness was also predetermined? To our intellect, it may seem, what is the point, molecules, atoms, just... But our limited intellect cannot understand what is the basis of that. What is the basis of that randomness? But it is playing some role which is happening according to cosmic law. So there comes Ramesh's second concept. The created object cannot know the will of the creator source. Which means all you can do is, to the best of your capacity, act in a given moment with whatever knowledge you have. Best possible knowledge you have. Now the outcome may either be in your, according to your preference, or it may not happen according to your preference. The opposite may happen. In either case, it will not lead to suffering. Let's say, if you do a piece of work and you're very successful at it, knowing that you're not the doer and that it was a happening, you will not create pride and arrogance towards the work. And if it fails, you will not create guilt and shame towards it. Because deep down, you know that it was not you who did anything, but it happened according to cosmic law. But as the Master says, that you are not to assume that you know the cosmic law. Because people who have assumed that they know cosmic law have created atrocities on this planet. So Ramana Maharishi, his quote is, "Whatever is destined not to happen will not happen. Try as you may. Whatever is destined to happen will happen. Do what you may to prevent it. This is certain. The best course, therefore, is to remain silent." What does he mean by remain silent? Silent does not mean passivity. He's not telling us to be quiet. If it is your nature to protest against injustice, do that. Get involved. Do that. Do it to the best of your capacity, fully knowing that the outcome may be not at all what you want. So once you accept the consequences, it is not a problem anymore. Problem is only when we are attached to the outcome. And sometimes that attachment can have deep roots in the psyche. It can be tied to, it is actually tied to our sense of self. If project fails, where I have invested my sense of self, I feel like a failure. You see, a very classic example is when two people who are walking and they collide, they laugh, they say, oh, sorry, and they move on. But two cars, when they collide, we know what happens, right? Why does that happen? That happens because you have created a certain image about yourself. And that image includes that object as a piece of higher value. Your phone may also be there as a piece of higher value. So if it drops, oh, we get afraid. If somebody takes it, we're looking for it frantically. We feel that some part of us is being taken away, and that hurts. So the masters say that why have we created this problem of ego? And why are we looking for its dissolution? That must be understood. But here's the thing, without ego, is functioning possible? But then we must know the understanding what exactly is ego. So ego in the classical sense is identification with the name and form as a separate entity. But Ramesh extended it a little and he said, it is not merely an identification with the name and form as a separate entity, but it is that with a sense of personal doership. So the ego itself is not to be destroyed, but the sense of personal doership is to be examined, just examined. It is not even in your control to destroy that. And the best way to understand this process, which is not an intellectual process at all, is to look at it from totality. Jiddu Krishnamurti would say there is tremendous energy in that vision of totality because it includes everything that is also on the periphery. It is not focused on one aspect of life. Because usually when we make an investigation, we make it with this idea, is it going to benefit me? What is there in it for me? But when we look at it with the total vision, where there is no analysis, where there is no judgment arising, that is the only possibility to have that insight, deeper insight of acceptance of what is. Things as they are happening. So you see what happens. One discovers order in the chaos, a natural order in the chaos. And chaos is no more a problem. And you can just do this experiment if you want to sometimes. Just sit on the side of a road in a busy market area and watch the traffic. Okay, watch the traffic, watch the cars. Initially, there will be a little bit of unease, listening to the horns and, the traffic, all hustle bustle. But when you're quiet enough and you have given total attention and now things are in the peripheral vision, you will discover a natural order to that chaos. All of a sudden, you will feel peaceful even in that chaos. It will no more be a problem. Problem is when we are trying to find our way through it, then we want, this is in my way, this is an obstruction in my way. So that is why we want that obstruction out of our way. So silence doesn't mean passivity. Silence means spontaneity in the sense, whatever you think is best course of action, do that. If you're totally confused, just take the action. There was a satsang where some German woman asked him a question and she said something like, But what if I'm confused and I don't know what to do? She kept repeating that, and Ramesh was saying, no, make a choice. But she said, but I don't know what to do. Then he said, okay, then toss a coin. Simple, problem solved. Free will exists, so free will can be given up freely. Such a person feels no genuine delight if he or she is not drained empty. With all the delicious food and drink in the world, true pleasure comes only with the extinction of pleasure and replacement by soul delight. Those who have gone through fana in Sufism signifies dissolution of the separate self. So those who have gone through fana into baka is realization of the being, the presence. Through annihilation into that which has always been, become all body and consciousness, with dissolving beings. I think I missed something. With this dissolution, there is overwhelming joy. By Rumi. Now this resonates so beautifully to me personally, with what Nisargadatta Maharaj was saying. That this is not a process of accumulating anything, but just seeing that which appears. And whatever appears is false, according to him. And he doesn't give us any method or technique to dissolve it. He just says, look at it. Just see it for what it is. And that is enough. So when the mind becomes empty, in the sense detached from all these concepts, we can truly never get rid of these concepts, but we can see them for what they are. And then there is, as they say in Buddhism, the grasping, the clinging, the trishna, the tanha. It's not there anymore. There are some concepts we get attracted to. There are some concepts we are averse to. But attraction and aversion are two sides of the same coin. They're the same energy, same movement. The center of which is me, the separate self. So this me, until it sees what these structures are and how they are playing out in one's life, it will truly be never free of these. And life will continue as it continues before. So this is what Rumi says, that one has to be drained empty. That means one has to make an investigation. Not come to an abrupt conclusion, but make an investigation. Sometimes we come to an abrupt conclusion. I remember somebody in satsang once was saying, I've encountered like one or two of such seekers where they would say, I have seen it, there is no possibility. I said, okay, so what are you doing right now? Saying, I'm looking for answers. So I said, if there is no possibility, then who is looking for answers? You see? So when the mind is very sure, we lose this ability to investigate. And this is why I began my premise that with this statement that it is concept, so that I give you the opportunity to investigate. And from what I've seen, when this message one comes across, initially it does not resonate. It never resonated with me initially because it's beautiful words put in. But slowly, as life plays out, you have the concept in your memory. That is why the memory is there. It is there for this purpose. Now you can analyze, you can see what is happening. So, if something creates hurt, where is the center of that hurt? Who is hurt? The greatest challenge with the concept of non-doership is that I can accept easily that I am not the doer, but it is very difficult to accept that the other is also not the doer. That is the biggest challenge. And that is the real sadhana. The organism can still react. But knowing that the other is not the doer, that energy will never be propelled forward as hate, as resentment, because that is a very, very painful energy to be with. It does nothing to the other, it just burns you up from inside, the energy of hate. But the initial discomfort of every emotion is there for a purpose. It is there to tell us that something has happened, to make us alert. But then there is a time to let that slide also. The problem is we hold it. We keep a registration of the hurts. And that collectively becomes this part of this structure, me and my hurt. Thinking that the other is the doer. So we say that he did it or she did it deliberately. That means she willed it. So when there is this understanding that everything is happening according to a cosmic law, the basis of which we will never be able to figure out, then who is the doer? Who is doing what and to whom? My final quote from the day is from Jiddu Krishnamurti. He says, "There is no how to be free. If you ask how to be free, you are not listening. If you ask how to surrender, you really do not want to surrender. If you are asking how to be present to this reality, here and now, you don't want to be in this reality. You are caught up with imagination. Which is not a flaw in your character, it is something that happens. It is conditioning, mind's conditioning. It has gone through certain experiences, and based on that experiences, it is following a pattern. It is not weakness. It is just what happens. But at some point, the awareness grips and totally grips, giving you no opportunity to make a choice. And in that choicelessness is your freedom. So, I would say to conclude, act in a given moment to the best of your capacity, knowing that you have free will. But always know that the moment you have made a choice, there itself your free will ends. And the outcome is always predetermined. And why I believe in this, let me tell you, not because I've heard it. I believe in this simply because of very selfish reason, because I believe it frees me from the cycle of guilt and shame. Because when I go back and look of some things that I did in the past, and I've done many things in the past, I don't keep that registration as my doing. I don't live with that pain. that I did something. It was supposed to happen the exact same way. If I said something hurtful, let's say to my children or to my mother or to my father, there was no other possibility. It had to happen that way. So why do I carry guilt and shame for something that was not even my action? That was all predetermined. And this is the only reason why I follow it. There is no other reason. So if you ask me if it is true or not, I will say it is true in my case. But you have to see where it lands you. I can only give concept. All right, we can take up some questions.
Let me just check this.
Ha.
Hello. Hello. Yeah. I wanted to talk about something. It's like an open-ended question I had. Words like innocence, there's generally a semantic meaning of good or bad associated to it.
Yeah.
But I had this experience that after knowing, the meaning just dissolves. So, could any meaning exist with knowing? And I've just written them some notes. So, like for everyone, happiness is different. For everyone, spiritual path is different. But in knowing, every other meaning just becomes like a movement. And is that movement trying to be closer to become that knowing? And is knowing just dissolution of everything, all movement? And yeah, like, should there be so much importance given to even the concept of knowing itself also? So
Yes, yes. So, of course, all we can do is just give a concept. And no, it is not the movement which is trying to know the knowing. Knowing by itself is. Its nature is knowing. And it is this knowing, this stillness, which is manifesting as the movement. It is not separate from the movement, just as a wave is not separate from the ocean. Nature of wave is the ocean. Nature of droplet of ocean is water. Fundamentally, it is water. So once there is that knowing, the movement still remains. It doesn't dissolve as such, but it now moves with this knowledge that its nature is knowing. So there is peace in that. There is no clinging. The clinging dissolves. That is the thing.
thank you.
Ah.
Walking on this path of dispassion, you often meet entities with attributes that invite feelings of disgust, which is often very sticky in nature, meaning it takes a while to get back to dispassionate state. How can we develop the discernment needed in such occasions to not get entangled in disgust? Um, Recognize some elements of the difference between dispassion and discernment between dispassion and disgust in what you spoke earlier today. So I had this question which I've been thinking on for so long, which makes me still cling on to some sort of a doership.
Yes, yes.
If you could share some insight on that, that would be great.
Yeah, so fundamentally, you know the difference between dispassion and disgust, okay? How? Because it creates a feeling, and it creates a sensation inside. When there is a disgust, there is unease. When there is dispassion, there is no unease as such. You may still have concern for the person. You may say, okay, it was not a good day for this person. They said something, okay? You're not registering that. Now, there is remembrance, because remembrance is a part of the biological function. It is there for us to facilitate this, interaction and live life. But registration is part of the separate self, of the ego. So, when one investigates into this disgust, what is its nature, what it is made up of, deep down, it is conforming to a structure that already exists within me. That disgust is not coming from outside, it is there within me, and there is recognition of that. There is a wound here. If we talk in psychological terms, there is a wound here, and there is something that has triggered that wound, that registration. So it's a part of the me identity. Now there is a crack, somebody has said something, so the me is hurt. All you can do is just investigate here. There you can't do anything, So you can just, even here, you cannot change it through your will. All you can do is just examine it, just look at it. Now, Bhagwan would put it in a different way. J. Krishnamurti would put it in another way. He would say, look at it totally. He would say so passionately, look, sir, you're not looking, look, he would say. What did he mean by that? What he meant by that, why are you verbalizing the hurt? Why are you giving it a name? The moment you verbalize it, you are in the realm of thought. You've already created the subject-object division. So you have to totally experience that sensation with all its discomfort and be totally still without moving a muscle, with total presence, and you will notice that the source of that hurt was within the self only. Now, the interesting thing is, this is so interesting, when one taps into that spaciousness, that presence, this division between the inner and the outer also begins to dissolve. You see? Which means something may still come from outside, will not become a part of your internal system when you realize what is happening. You see? And again, combining it with this concept of non-doership, this works out beautifully. When you truly realize that the other is not the doer, there will be dispassion. When you think that the other is doer, there will be disgust. They did it deliberately. Now see the goats, they're crossing, okay? They're excited, there's food, they're crossing. So are we going there, you did it deliberately? No, they don't have that concept, right? Even in the case of a child, we can't say, a toddler, let's say, if a toddler is walking with a knife, what are we going to do? We're going to just protect ourselves and make sure that we safely take the knife and, make sure that we are safe, the child is safe. But we're not going to hurt the child. We're not going to say you did it deliberately. But what happens is when we are conditioned, when these structures are built around me, they say no. They are the doers. So mind externalizes. The reason for that externalization is because I don't want to see what is here, the discomfort. I don't want to address that. So I externalize. And I'm sure all of us have experienced this, that whenever we had, a broken relationship or, a broken friendship or anything, first there comes the hurt. And there is this natural tendency to blame the other person. Only if they had done this correctly, that correctly, this way, that way, things would be fine. But in that moment, to be totally with oneself is an act of courage. That is why Nisargadatta Maharaj said that this sadhana it requires courage, it requires earnestness on your part to not divert your attention outwards, but to remain with what is. What is God, according to Robert Adams, his book. So, deep down, you know what is the difference between dispassion and disgust. And with this understanding, use the concept and see how it plays out in life. That discernment will come by itself. That discernment is not personal, it is impersonal knowledge. So it will come by itself. You are not to be concerned with how to bring about that discernment. Neither can I tell you any practice as such to build that, because that is not my job, and neither it is in my control. It is in awareness's control. Awareness knows best. So I say, let the awareness do its job, and then you're free.
It requires very radical honesty, no?
Yes.
Extremely radical honesty.
Yes, it does.
I wanted to slightly double click on Jiddu Krishnamurti would say with so much passion that look at it with total attention. Can you talk a little more about this total attention versus concentration?
Yes. So, shall we? Do you want to ask something?
Oh, no. So, just before that, I just want to add.
I'll just respond after. Yeah.
Not a question. So, when we're
sharing.
talking about this,
Yeah.
It's total vulnerability, it's total a kind of love that you have for yourself, that you even if you move a little bit away from it, you're just doing violence to yourself.
Yes, exactly.
Such vulnerability you require, right?
Movement away from the self. Even if this much movement is away from yourself, there will be pain and suffering.
Yeah, I'm feeling that. Just hearing those words, it's just remembering that it's a great fear also that comes up with it. You have to face head on.
Yes. So the mind says, oh, I must not move. Now, the thing is, now it has objectified that self. It cannot move. It is that. You see? So, of course, the thinking, the movement will happen because that's how life is designed. Yes, you were saying?
Yeah.
The concentration and...
Yeah, I don't think total attention is very easy to experience or to... I think it requires a lot of effort to get that quality. I've had some experiences, but it's quite difficult in daily living to, constantly live with total attention to any particular situation or anything that is happening. And is that different from concentration? And I just wanted to know your thoughts then.
Yes. Concentration is limited vision. It is limited vision. You are concentrating on an object. So there is no total attention in that. In concentration, there is something that you want out of that concentration. That is why you're concentrating. Now, for practical purposes, like if you're doing creative work, that works out to be the best. And we will cover this distinction in tomorrow's lecture about the working mind and the thinking mind. But the idea is that concentration is always limited. But the total vision that Jiddu Krishnamurti is talking about is not focusing on one particular aspect of what is being observed, but to see things in totality. So you see, in totality, there is no resistance. There is pure witnessing. You, the individual entity, cannot make sense of it, cannot do it through your own accord. It will just happen. And sometimes, you must have noticed, when you're completely calm and you're just looking around, there are no thoughts. What is happening there? Is there any effort in that? It is so effortless. It is just happening on its own accord. Awareness there is doing the job. And there you're getting insight, beauty, love. That is true love. There is no choice in that. You're not demanding the scenery to be a certain way. You're not demanding the situation to be a certain way. Concentration is when you demand the situation to be a certain way. So if I sit in meditation, with one pointed concentration, I am demanding that my mind should be one pointed, concentrated, and the objective is to make it quiet. But meditation is not happening right now when in that phase. Meditation happens when the meditator dissolves, when you become the meditation, when you become the activity that you're performing. There is no outcome there. And that does not require you to sit in specific posture and follow specific protocols. You can just walk and you can just do nothing and just be. So Ramana Maharshi would say, just be. It is much simpler. Rather than using an object, just come back to the self as the object and let it merge with that infinite source of wisdom.
Could another way to conceptualize would be to be more sensitive to your environment, like try to grasp the...
See, anything that you trying itself is effort. You see? Now what happens is, immediately our intellectual mind comes up trying to make sense of this. How can I do this? But maybe I can become the witness in a certain way. I can be a certain way. But you see, in all of that process, you're trying to be this or that. To be is to simply be. You cannot do it. You cannot try it. And that is why the master said here, if you're asking how, you're not listening, right? That is the understanding. You just cannot do anything in that. And that is surrender, knowing that I cannot do anything. It is not my will, but the divine will that will make it happen. So what happens then? I'm free of the burden, na? I become free of the burden. Why should I bother? I can just, I can just do a little bit of gardening. I can play chess. I can watch a movie. I can be with my friends. And I can simply enjoy life as it comes, with its ups and downs, accepting both. The pleasure, the cycle of pleasure and pain, and it's going to be like that. There is no teaching on the earth that can prevent you from experiencing pain. The cycle of pleasure and pain is there. The only difference being, now again I'm conceptualizing between two entities, ordinary man and a sage, but this does not exist as such. It's only, think of it as an attribute. For an ordinary man, the roller coaster of emotions is like this, up and down, extreme. For a sage, it is like this. The amplitudes are not that high. The highs are not that high. The lows are not that high. Lows are not that low. So, what state is the sage operating in? The sage is operating in complete effortlessness, right? Because there is no resistance that is coming from the opposite end and telling the sage you have to be a certain way. The sage completely accepts the human organism for the way it is, with all its flaws. And even the sage has flaws, just like the rest of us. The only thing is, sage is aware about the flaws. And he's not very, because he does not operate in that framework of society, he's not much concerned whether he should fix himself or not. And that itself brings this easefulness. You see? So the whole idea is that this acceptance has to be total. The surrender has to be total. Till I'm asking how, why, when, where, some part of the resistance is there. And of course, that is what the teaching and all message, that is what the message is there for. So, go back, listen to it again and, see what the masters are trying to say. This great wisdom there.
Gives a lot of relief.
Got almost all the queries, but still what I wanted to ask is, sometimes we feel that we are being taken for granted by others.
Yes.
And that creates unrest, discomfort.
Yes.
So being in that moment, gather yourself to the normality or in now, becomes difficult sometime.
Yes.
So
what can we do?
Yeah. So be there, accept it, and move on.
No. See, it is like this. So in
Because
that-
it hurts.
Yes, of course. That is a practical situation.
Yeah.
It is not an imagined
Imaginary.
situation.
Yeah. People are
Right?
taking for granted.
Yes. So when people are taking granted, based on your conditioning, do whatever you think is right in the moment. If you feel that you should respond, give them back. And I do it like this.
Yeah.
When somebody takes me for granted, I respond
Yeah.
with full intensity.
absolutely.
And I put that boundary in place.
Yes.
Why? Because that's my nature.
Yeah.
Now, if they think that I'm horrible for that, then that's not up to me. That's
So
not
putting
my
the healthy boundaries is absolutely the
Yes,
solution.
putting the healthy boundaries. I would also say, but let some of it be porous also.
Yeah.
Because if the boundaries are too hard, sometimes
No,
we
that's why it's healthy.
end up creating walls.
Yeah.
Yes, healthy boundaries are a little bit porous. Sometimes a little leeway can be given. So we had this situation where somebody was in the satsang and he was a bit excited and not behaving in the right way, as in, he was trying to give answers over answers. So I had to tell him that I'm going to throw you out if you continue this behavior. So that, and he felt offended, so he left by himself and he never showed up again. But I had to tell him that. But that is not an imagined situation. It is happening in the present. So your response will also be in the present.
Correct.
So here you see, you cannot be anywhere but in the present.
In the present.
Presence is your nature. The problem that I'm talking about, the problem these masters are talking about is an imagined situation where we're living with the known, right? We have a certain perception about a person which has been brought about by memory, okay? We feel like, for example, I would say, when we go through a string of failed relationships, right? There is a lot of accumulation of hurt. So what is the basis of that accumulation? The basis of that accumulation is all registration. I was with this person, he had this kind of attribute. So what happens is, now when I meet the other person, my mind immediately starts picking up things from the past. It says, oh, they also behaved like this. Now this person is showing the same pattern. So this can hurt me. So I must be proactive and take action now. Now that is not a real situation. That is an imagined situation. If one can catch one's intensity in that moment, that catching, that vision can simply bring it back to that baseline nature. One doesn't need to do anything in that. Just first of all, be inwards and see what is happening within you. And in most of the cases, as this understanding deepens, there is a knowing that this situation has right now not happened. I'm either lurking in the dead past or I'm caught up in an imaginary future, and I'm acting from there. I'm not acting from presence. So that is where, you can hold and reflect. That is what the mind is there for. Hold and reflect and assess the situation. But if in the given moment, now again, there's one thing here which I must clarify. Certainly, you can act in a given moment, but the outcome is not in your control.
Absolutely.
So, yes, it is easy for us to set boundaries when it is a friend or, let's say, a partner.
Yeah.
But what about a parent or a cop or a boss? There the challenge begins. So what happens in that case? Sometimes I'm able to set boundaries, but other times I fail. Okay? I mean, this has been experience of my life here. People have trampled over my boundaries many times, and I have to accept that. So I'm not going to create any shame towards myself for saying that I couldn't hold my boundary. Maybe in that moment I was a little vulnerable. My parents said something, I felt bad. I couldn't hold the boundary. I'm not going to create any resentment towards my parent or towards myself for it. I live in that acceptance that even sometimes I am going to fail in this process. That is a part of what is. So that again frees me from this load of shame and guilt.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Is there any battery left in that?
sir, like about free. I have two questions on the same concept about the free will.
Yes.
Like, suppose I go to a hotel there, and I want to eat something, and he gives me a choice: idli, vada, masala dosa, palav, puri, everything. Okay, but in first situation, I can choose anything, but the waiter has already decided that he's going to bring me masala dosa. So this is just a false choices which I have been given forth, right? He has already decided that he's going to bring me masala dosa.
Yes.
But I'm just making a false choices. I want palav.
Yes.
This is the first question. Second question is, even the choice I am making, does it not contradict the doership? Even the choice I make is also doership, right?
No.
I'm making a choice.
Yeah.
Is it not contradicting?
No, that
the
is not
first one?
doership. You are making a choice based on your preference, and it is okay to have a preference. Okay, I want, let's say, masala dosa. I love masala dosa. Okay, well, I love rava masala more. But so I love rava masala. I want rava masala. My preference is rava masala. Okay, and I'm expecting that rava masala is going to come. So then the waiter comes and says, "Sir, sorry, today no rava masala, only uttapam." Okay, well, I like uttapam too, but rava masala is my favorite. So what happens there? I feel a little disappointment. Okay, which is the natural reaction of the biological organism. It is not doership. To feel disappointed in not getting your preference is okay. To feel happy when your preference is fulfilled is also okay. But to be angry towards the waiter and say, I wanted masala dosa or pulao, whatever, rava dosa only. Why haven't you bring me rava masala dosa? You know, to have that kind of energy, to hold him responsible for that, you are saying he's the doer. He had rava masala, he didn't give me rava masala. You see? So you see, it is very clear. Your fundamental nature is made up of knowing. You always know what is happening when. What is your internal state? You're always aware of that. You may not be very consciously aware, but deep down, there is a knowing. You may not even be able to put it in words. Feeling a slight sting of disappointment in not getting the preferred outcome is not doership. But continuing it in horizontal time, how dare they? I will teach them a lesson, I will close this restaurant. That becomes doership, that becomes pain, because you live with that story and you sleep with that story, and you keep awake, you keep anxious. Things are not going according to my idea, the way I want things to be. I will give you one example. Sometimes we have to go through this hard lesson. There was one relative of mine who bought a can of beers and kept it in my house. Now, I don't like people bringing alcohol to my house. I don't drink alcohol, and I don't like people bringing alcohol. Outside, they are free to do whatever they want. So I told them that, I would appreciate if you don't get this inside my house, because my children are playing around, I don't want them to be exposed to such things. Now, I failed in that endeavor because certain forces at that time were in such way that I could not assert it any further. So what did I do? What could I do? I had to accept that hurt, that pain in the moment. That, okay, this is the reality. But I did my best. I told him once or twice, but it did not work out. So am I going to live with that shame that my demand was not met? No, I'm not going to live with that shame. I saw that certain forces were acting on me, certain forces were acting on that organism too. And this is mentioned in one of the verses in Bhagavad Gita. There are so many forces acting on an individual. We cannot make sense of these forces. So what can we do? We can only accept things as they are, which is God's will. And then the conflict finishes. Acceptance of what is freedom, is choicelessness.
But sir, when I have the freedom to choose,
Yes.
does it not bring me shame? Definitely, because see, suppose in a hotel, if I has chosen the best item, he could have brought me the best item. This thing will come upon the mind, right? Suppose if I chosen now I order idli vada, he comes with me idli vada, and then I come to know this is not good here. The person again sitting beside me has ordered masala dosa. He's eating it very nicely because I had a choice to order something here, but I went wrong through the choice. That's why I got idli vada.
Yeah.
So if I had a choice to order masala dosa, I could have done this. This shame again comes in, right? The moment you say there's a freedom to choose,
Yeah.
the outcome related to the choice is again the conditioning, right?
Yes.
Is it happiness or
So,
guilt or?
till there is that outcome, so the shame will always come into picture when there is alignment of right and wrong. So when you say that I made a wrong choice, what was, so you have a concept of wrong in your mind. You think that you are making the choice, but you see it is the universe that is giving you with option. What if I say, what if there is a third option? Maybe some exotic dish, Italian dish. But that won't matter to you much. So you think that you have a choice, but you see our choices are also limited. Our choices are also limited. Let's say you have to reach from point A to point B. There are two routes. Okay. Now one route there is always crowd. Another route is empty. But you don't know which one will be crowded when. So what can you do in that situation? Choice has to be made because you have to reach on the other end. But you have to accept that I may encounter traffic or I may not encounter traffic, and you just have to move. So what this teaching does, what this message does, it just tells you make the choice. All right? You have been given that much freedom. Make the choice. But that is where it finishes. Once you have made the choice, know that outcome is not in your control. You may encounter traffic, you may get masala dosa or not, So the shame only comes into picture when I have a grasping of it. When I want that, the person should bring me this. So you see with this, all the should not, must not, they begin to loosen a little bit. I won't say end, but they loosen a little bit.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So in Bhagavad Gita, there is a concept called
Okay.
Sthita Prajnata.
Yeah.
So there is a concept called Sthita Prajnata, equanimity. So, how can we, say it suggests the midway, or it's not indifference, but it still suggests that you don't get affected by sitoshna, sukha dukkha,
Yes.
kind of a thing. So, is this in alignment with what we are actually currently
course.
discussing?
Yes, of
Okay.
course. In my experience, Sthit Prajna can only be achieved through the acceptance of what is. There is no other way. The moment you have any form of attachment to any outcome, that imbalance will show up. There will be that urge. There will be disappointment, there will be excitement, but peace will not be, the equanimity will not be there. So these masters make it simple. They say you have to accept both aspects. When there is acceptance of, see, you see, totality includes the opposite. Yeah. Totality cannot be, it cannot be a process of exclusion. It is all inclusion. Yes.
I like to use people as sounding boards just to have a discussion. So when we were talking about non-doership, I came up with an analogy which kind of made sense to me. So I want to run it by you, which is like, imagine that you're building a machine, right? So let's say you code the machine to perform one way or the other, right? And you just let the machine be. Now the machine performs its actions according to its programming, and as it views or observes things, it's doing things, it's getting things done.
Yes.
And let's say one day, one fine day, you show it its blueprints.
Yeah.
This is its blueprint, this is your blueprint, and this is your programming.
Yes.
Now, what would the machine, how would the machine react? Like, how would the machine
Yeah.
be?
Yeah.
That is exactly what I feel non-doership is, right? That
Yes.
state,
Yes. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So there is this question, and ultimately machine will do whatever it is designed to do, without worrying about whether it should do something or should not do something. So I can write a program to do a computation. That program will never know why I coded, how I coded it, and why I coded it that way. All it knows is that work has to be done, the output has to be there. So, as we were discussing the other day, that Zen saying, what was that? Chop wood, chop grass before enlightenment, chop wood, chop grass after enlightenment. So, life remains more or less the same. This teaching does not make life bed of roses or wonderful. It just gives you a fresh perspective. It changes your attitude towards the flow of life. There is more acceptance. So there is relatively less pain, I would say. So the simple, Ramesh would say, the simple imprisonment does not become rigorous imprisonment with all the thinking. It cuts away the thinking. One does not live with that sense of shame and guilt that I must act like this, that I am the doer. And the Bhagavad Gita also says you cannot commit a good deed, neither can you commit a sin. Because you simply are not the doer. So, the natural consequence of the understanding is that the organism becomes free. And U.G. Krishnamurti says this very beautifully. He says that the biological organism was always very peaceful. We judged the organism because, we sometimes see a child, we say, this child is very naughty, very, restless, and this. Those are attributes we are projecting onto the child. Those are our own attributes, it is coming from our unconscious. Child is just programmed naturally with complete acceptance that, okay, its programming is like that. But then we are told, this is not okay. No, this is not okay. You must change. And then we go into that frenzy of changing, learning, modifying. So J. Krishnamurti would say, the image, no matter how much it modifies, remains the image. It remains the image. The self that is trying to annihilate itself remains the self. It is the self's idea only. So he says, and I think we'll conclude with this. He says, what is that which is not touched by thought? Can we give it a name? Can we describe it as a concept? That is the investigation. Let that investigation go on. All right. We'll just sit quietly for
Shambhavi Shyamale Minakshi Sundareswara Sakshi Shankari Guru Guha Samudbhave Shiveva Pamara Mochani Pankajalochani Padmasanavani Harilakshmi Vinute Shambhavi Shyamale Minakshi Sundareswara Sakshi Shankari Guru Guha Samudbhave Shri